Most people imagine King Arthur's Britain as a mystical medieval kingdom filled with knights in gleaming armor, towering stone castles, and elegant ladies in flowing gowns. The reality couldn't be more different. If you suddenly found yourself transported back to 5th or 6th century Arthurian Britain, you discover a harsh post-Roman existence of wooden halls rather than majestic castles. The knights would be battle-hardened fighters clad in leather and mail, not the romanticized heroes of later tales clad in plate armor. As for King Arthur himself, if he existed at all, he was likely a Romano-British warlord struggling to maintain order as Roman influence crumbled around him. Welcome to the authentic Arthurian Britain, where survival was the ultimate quest, and the Holy Grail simply meant living to see another sunrise. Before we begin, if you're a regular listener, hit like or subscribe. I'm always curious about my audience's locations, so drop a comment with your city and current time. It's strange to think some of you might be having breakfast in London while I record this late at night here in America. Now, let's journey back to post-Roman Britain. Trust me, it'll be quite an adventure. But first, get comfortable. Seriously, adjust your pillows, pull up that blanket, because where we're going, you'll want to be cozy. So congratulations, you've just awakened in Britain around 500 AD. The first thing that assaults your senses isn't the sights, but the smells. Your nostrils fill with the sharp sting of wood smoke mingled with the earthy sense of damp thatch and unwashed bodies. The humid air chills you to the bone despite the animal furs covering you. You're lying on a straw-stuffed mattress atop a wooden platform, a far cry from your memory foam bed back home. The single-room dwelling is dim, illuminated only by the faint orange glow from a central fire pit. Smoke drifts lazily upward, most escaping through the roof's smoke hole, though enough remains to make your eyes water. The wooden rafters above are blackened from years of accumulated soot. You're not alone. Several other figures huddle under wool blankets and furs nearby. A family, you realize, all sleeping together for warmth in this cramped space. No private bedrooms with climate control here. Your back aches from the hard sleeping surface. Your throat feels raw from breathing smoke all night. And there's an urgent pressure in your bladder reminding you that indoor plumbing won't be invented for another 1,400 years. As dawn's first light filters through gaps in the walls, you hear movement outside, people already beginning their day. No sleeping in during the Dark Ages. Every hour of daylight is precious when survival depends on it. A woman near the fire stirs, coaxing life back into the embers by adding small sticks. She wears a simple brown wool dress with a cloak fastened at her shoulder, her hair covered by a linen cloth. Her face appears young yet weathered, marked by constant labor and worry. "Up," she says, noticing you're awake. "The cattle need tending, and Geraint wants all men at the hall before midday." Her accent is strange, not quite Welsh, not entirely familiar, a blend of Celtic speech with lingering Latin influences. You sit up, every muscle protesting. This body you inhabit is strong, but worn by hard labor. Your hands are calloused, your arms sinewy with muscles developed through work your modern life never demanded. Near the door, you spot what must be your clothing, a coarse woolen tunic, thick trousers, and leather shoes showing multiple repairs. There's also a heavy wool cloak, essential protection against Britain's damp climate. No synthetic fabrics here, just wool that becomes sodden in rain and takes forever to dry. Is it the Saxons again? You hear yourself ask, the words coming automatically though you didn't consciously form them. The woman's expression tightens. Geraint had word from the eastern settlements. 3 more farms raided last full moon. They're pushing farther west each season. She makes a quick, almost furtive sign of the cross. We should be safe here behind the old Roman walls. But her voice trails off uncertainly. You realize you're in a settlement built within or near the ruins of a Roman fort or town. The empire withdrew its legions nearly a century ago, but the stone foundations of Roman civilization remain, repurposed, rebuilt upon, yet only a shadow of their former glory. Outside, the settlement comes alive. Wooden houses, some round, some rectangular with thatched roofs, cluster together for protection. Some are built directly into surviving Roman stone structures, using ancient walls as foundations. Smoke rises from numerous fire pits as people move purposefully about morning tasks. Children chasing chickens, a man leading a thin cow to pasture, women carrying water from a central well, a chore that will be repeated countless times today. There's none of modern morning's leisure. No phone scrolling, no automatic coffee makers. Every calorie of food, every comfort must be earned through labor. You see a wooden palisade surrounding the settlement. Not a grand castle wall, but a practical barrier of sharpened logs. Beyond it lie cultivated fields, and farther still, the dark line of forests. The man called Geraint is easy to spot. He stands taller than most, his bearing proud despite his simple clothing. Only subtle details mark him as a leader. A slightly finer quality cloak, a silver rather than bone or wood brooch, a knife with an ornate handle at his belt. He speaks with two other men near a building larger than the rest, a wooden hall with carved posts flanking its entrance. This isn't the romanticized court of King Arthur from legends. No knights in shining armor, no round table, no stone castle flying colorful banners. This is post-Roman Britain's reality, a struggling society trying to maintain order after imperial collapse, facing threats from nature, raiders, and the gradual loss of Roman knowledge and technology. You make your way to a small stream cutting through the settlement to wash sleep from your face. The icy water shocks you awake. Around you, people nod in greeting, calling you by a name you somehow know is yours here, Bedwer. As you splash water on your face, an old man approaches, white-bearded, stooped with age, yet with sharp, knowing eyes. The people call him Merlin, respecting yet fearing him. He serves as physician, herbalist, and some whisper, practitioner of the old ways before Christianity came to these shores. You dreamed again, Merlin states. It's not a question. Strange metal carriages moving without horses, buildings scraping the sky, a world so different from ours it seems impossible. The dreams are fading now, replaced by this world's immediate survival demands. They'll pass, Merlin assures you. They always do. He hands you a small leather pouch. Brew this with hot water and drink before going to the hall. It'll clear your mind. You accept the pouch, knowing it contains herbs, perhaps willow bark for pain, perhaps something more potent from Merlin's extensive plant knowledge. In this world without modern medicine, such knowledge equals power. The settlement has a name, Camelot, meaning crooked bank for the river's bend nearby. In this life, you've lived here as long as you can remember, though those otherworldly dreams make you question everything. Most residents are farmers who become warriors when needed. The Romans taught Britain organization, and those lessons haven't been entirely forgotten. When Saxon raiders come, farmers take up spears and shields, forming defensive walls under Geraint's command. Geraint himself was trained by a man taught by a former Roman cavalryman. He strives to preserve that military knowledge even as it fades with each generation. That's why he wants all men at the hall today, for training and preparation. The Saxons grow bolder. After washing, you return to the dwelling for a quick breakfast, coarse bread, hard cheese, and ale, safer to drink than questionable water. The woman, your sister in this life, hands you a wooden bowl of oat and barley porridge, bland but filling, sprinkled with precious dried berries. Eat, she says. Who knows when Geraint will let you break for food? As you eat, you notice a small wooden cross near the door, evidence of Christianity's spread. But beside it, nearly hidden, is a much older symbol carved into the doorpost, a protective sigil from pagan times. Like many in this transitional period, your family hedges their bets, honoring both the Christ God and older deities. Your sister's husband enters, already sweating from morning labor. As the settlement's blacksmith, one of its most valued members, his ability to work metal, repair tools, and forge weapons makes him indispensable for survival. The burn scars covering his forearms testify to his dangerous craft. Geraint's in a foul mood, he says, tearing off a chunk of bread. A messenger arrived before dawn from Glevum. The Latin name for Gloucester sounds oddly formal in his British accent. What news? Your sister asks, tension immediately tightening her voice. The usual, Saxon's raiding. The smith replies between mouthfuls. But also word of a new leader uniting the British tribes against them. He pauses dramatically. They call him Arthur, or Artorius. Some claim he served Rome before the legions withdrew. The name sends an unexpected shiver down your spine. Arthur, the once and future king. But this is no storybook monarch, just a warlord trying to stem the Saxon tide while preserving fragments of Roman civilization in a world forgetting more with each passing year. You finish your meager breakfast and step back into the crisp morning air where mist burns away to reveal a settlement blending Roman ruins with native British construction. Stone foundations supporting wooden structures. Once straight Roman roads now muddy and rutted. A crumbling bathhouse repurposed as a storage shed. Everywhere, the visible decline of imperial order contrasts with stubborn British resilience. Time to head toward the hall and hear Geraint's news. Perhaps more about this Arthur figure. Perhaps just preparations for the ever-present raider threat. Survival here demands constant vigilance, community cooperation, and willingness to fight when necessary. As you walk toward the hall, you realize nothing resembles the Camelot of legend. No tournaments, no ladies-in-waiting, no magical quests. If this truly is the historical Arthur's time, reality involves desperate struggles against external threats and internal collapse. The Round Table? At best, a council of tribal leaders setting aside ancient feuds to face a common enemy. Excalibur? Probably just a well-made sword. Priceless in an era when quality steel is rare. The Holy Grail? For these people, a good harvest and raid-free winter would be miracle enough. The wooden hall looms ahead, smoke curling from its central hearth. Men gather, some clearly farmers by their rough hands and practical clothing, others bearing themselves like warriors, former Roman auxiliaries or their descendants trying to maintain military traditions as Roman discipline fades into memory. Inside, the air hangs thick with smoke and the musk of unwashed bodies. Wooden benches line the walls, and at the far end stands a slightly raised platform where Geraint will speak. Practical weapons, not decorations, hang on the walls. This is where the community makes decisions, settles disputes, and prepares for war. You find a bench beside men you've known your entire life in this world. Tension crackles in the air. News from beyond their isolated settlement is rare and precious, and word of someone successfully resisting the Saxon advance offers fragile hope in dark times. As the hall fills, smoke from the central fire makes your eyes water. No chimneys here, just an inadequate roof, leaving beams blackened by years of soot. Carvings adorn some posts, protective symbols, images of boars and eagles, Christian crosses mingled with older pagan designs, the spiritual collage of transitional times. Geraint enters last, accompanied by a stranger, the messenger. The man's cloak bears the stains of hard travel, his face gaunt from riding. He carries himself like a warrior, his hand never straying far from his belt knife. The hall gradually falls silent as Geraint takes his place. Unlike later medieval kings, he wears no crown or royal robes. Only his bearing and slightly finer cloak mark his status. Men of Camelot, he begins, his voice carrying through the smoky hall. Our guest brings word from the east. The Saxons took another settlement near Corinium. The Latin name for Cirencesta sounds unnatural in his British speech, another fading echo of Rome. But he also brings hope, Geraint continues. A leader has emerged from Dumnonia's kingdom, a man trained in Roman warfare who remembers legion discipline. He's won 3 battles against the Saxons and now calls all British kingdoms to unite against this common threat. The messenger steps forward. His name is Artorius, he says with a southern accent, though our people call him Arthur. He sends word to all settlements still loyal to Britain and Rome's ways. The Saxons can be defeated, but only if we stand together. Murmurs ripple through the crowd, now tinged with cautious hope. In a world of constant threats and gradual decline, successfully resisting the Saxon advance seems almost miraculous. He calls for men. The messenger continues. Warriors if you have them, but also smiths, carpenters, any who can support an army. He's established his court at Cadbury Hill, fortifying the old hill fort there. So this is how legends begin, you think, not with magical swords or holy quests, but practical wartime needs. A hill fort becomes Camelot, a warlord becomes a king, loyal fighters become knights of the Round Table. As the messenger details Arthur's victories, you feel the hall's mood shifting. For years, your people have been on the defensive, watching Roman civilization crumble while Saxon pressure grows from the east. That someone successfully fighting back kindles something long absent, hope. But you also notice skeptics, older men who've heard empty promises before, seen would-be leaders rise and fall, who know uniting Britain's fractious kingdoms with their ancient feuds seems impossible. What proof have we of these victories? One man calls out. Just wind words. The messenger reaches into his belt pouch and produces something gleaming, a Saxon brooch with intricate animal designs. Taken from a Saxon war leader at the battle near Venta Belgarum's old fortress, he declares, one of many such trophies. He hands it to Geraint, who examines it closely before passing it around. When it reaches you, you feel its solid silver weight and admire the craftsmanship. No trivial ornament, but a high-status piece among Saxon invaders. Arthur asks not for fealty, but alliance. The messenger continues. Each kingdom keeps its own leader, but all agree to unite against the Saxons, to share information, support each other's defenses, combine forces against major threats. This pragmatic approach makes sense in a world where local identity remains strong and central authority vanished with Rome. Unlike later legends of knights swearing allegiance to a high king, Arthur seeks cooperation, not submission. And what does this Arthur offer in return? Another man demands. Protection, the messenger answers. Training in Roman tactics, shares of plunder from Saxon settlements. He pauses meaningfully. And survival. Alone, each British kingdom will fall. Together, we have a chance. The debate continues as you study those around you. Men who've known nothing but civilization's slow collapse in their lifetimes. Who've watched Roman roads crumble, buildings decay, knowledge fade. Who've seen Saxon settlements creep westward year by year. For them, no glorious Arthurian age awaits. Just daily struggles to preserve Roman remnants, to survive in a world where Rome's light has dimmed and no new order has fully emerged. This is authentic Arthurian Britain. Not chivalry's golden age, but a desperate fight for cultural and physical survival. A time when the old Roman world dies while still remembered, when Christianity coexists with older beliefs, when Rome's former provinces fragment back into tribal kingdoms. Yet within this harsh reality, you see seeds of later legends. A leader inspiring hope, warriors loyal to a greater cause, the struggle against impossible odds, the fight to preserve civilization against chaos's tide. When Geraint calls for silence to consider the messenger's words, you realize Arthur's true story. If this is indeed the historical figure behind the myth, is more compelling than romanticized versions. This is about real people facing existential threats, finding courage in desperate times, clinging to civilization's remnants when surrender would be easier. The hall has grown stuffy with packed bodies, sweat mingling with smoke and damp wool. These aren't pristine knights from legend, but hard-working men who know survival requires both plow and sword, both agricultural diligence and battlefield courage. Geraint raises his hands. We'll consider this carefully, he declares. Sending men weakens our own defenses. But if Arthur truly can unite British kingdoms against the Saxon threat, he leaves the thought unfinished. Everyone understands the stakes. Tonight we'll feast to honor our messenger and discuss this fully. Let all with opinions come forward. As men file out to resume daily tasks, you remain seated, pondering the messenger's words. Could this Arthur actually unite Britain's fractious kingdoms? Could he repel the Saxon advance? Or is he just another warlord making empty promises? Outside, full daylight reveals the settlement's bustling activity. Women weaving, children tending livestock, men repairing tools or working fields beyond the palisade. Life continues despite talk of Arthur and alliances. Immediate needs remain paramount. ensuring winter food stores, maintaining defenses, keeping civilization's fragile flame alive in this isolated corner of post-Roman Britain. You head toward the smithy where your sister's husband works, hammering glowing metal at his anvil. The forge's heat feels welcome in the cool air. So, he says without looking up, talk of Arthur. You've heard of him. Rumors, you reply. A warlord from the west. Some say the last Roman commanders trained him. Others claim royal British blood. He shrugs, quenching hot metal in a water bucket that hisses steam. What matters is whether he can actually unite our quarrelsome kingdoms. You nod, understanding his skepticism. Since Rome withdrew, Britain has fragmented along old tribal lines. The unity Rome imposed fades with each generation. If he's truly winning battles against Saxons, you offer, that alone merits consideration. The smith grunts non-committally, working a broken plowshare. In this world, every tool is precious, every metal fragment worth salvaging. As you pump the bellows, sending sparks flying, you consider what you've learned. The historical Arthur, if this warlord is indeed the legend's basis, resembles little the romantic king of later tales. No Guinevere, no Lancelot, no Merlin, though perhaps Merlin is that character's seed. This Arthur is a unifier, a protector, very much a man of his time facing post-Roman Britain's harsh realities. The smith hands you a wooden bucket. Make yourself useful, the forge needs water. At the settlement's central stream, women wash clothes by pounding them with smooth stones. Children fill water jugs. A man guts freshly caught fish. The stream serves multiple purposes, upstream for drinking, midstream for washing, downstream for waste. A far cry from modern plumbing. Everyone moves purposefully here. No idle scrolling or procrastination. Laziness isn't just frowned upon. It's potentially fatal when survival depends on daily labor. Returning with water, your arms already ache. Modern gyms would amuse these people whose entire existence is physical toil. Thanks, the smith mutters, taking the bucket. Words aren't wasted here. Even conversation is economical. His forge tools are priceless in a world without Rome's trade networks. Each implement maintained, repaired, reused. Nothing is disposable. Geraint wants spearheads, he reveals. 10 by week's end. This suggests Geraint seriously considers joining Arthur's forces. Each spear represents precious iron and hours of skilled labor. Enough iron? You ask. His face darkens. We'll melt down Roman fittings from the abandoned villa. The roof braces should yield enough. He shakes his head ruefully, tearing apart what Rome built to arm ourselves. The irony isn't lost on either of you. Scavenging a fallen empire's remains to defend against new threats. Leaving the smith, you head to outlying fields for spring planting. The settlement's survival depends on today's work. Outside the palisade, generations of cleared land create crop fields. Men and women work together using ox-drawn wooden plows that barely scratch the soil. Inefficient by modern standards, but standard here. Bedwar, a farmer, calls. We need help sowing. You join a group scattering precious seed grain, mostly barley with some wheat and oats, across plowed earth. This isn't modern wheat, but ancient spelt, hardier though less productive. The bread will be dense and heavy, but life-sustaining. As you work, you overhear farmers discussing Saxon agricultural methods, strip fields, they call them, using plows that turn soil completely. Such mundane details carry ominous significance. The Saxons aren't just raiding but changing the land itself, imposing new farming patterns that overwrite British ways field by field. A woman carrying water pauses near your group. Geraint's sending 20 men to this Arthur. She says, news travels fast in small communities. 20, someone exclaims. That's a quarter our fighting strength. If Arthur pushes Saxons back, it's worth it, another counters. Better fight them there than here. The debate continues. Every decision here carries life or death consequences. By afternoon, you help construct a new storage building. Simple post and beam construction with wattle and daub walls and thatched roof. Unlike Roman stonework, most buildings now use readily available materials. The work is satisfying, creating something benefiting the entire community. Nearby, Children play. A boy boasts about Arthur's magic sword, while another scoffs. Only stone swords come from our ones with, or in them. Even now, legend grows around reality. Accomplishments magnified through retelling. At day's end, you help butcher a pig for tonight's feast. Nothing is wasted. Blood becomes pudding, intestines sausage casings, bones tools, even the bladder a storage container. This hands-on connection to food sources contrasts sharply with modern sanitized supermarkets. The pig represents significant wealth. Most protein comes from dairy products here. Meat is reserved for special occasions like tonight's feast, honoring the messenger and discussing Arthur's alliance. As evening approaches, the settlement transforms with feast preparations. Women bake extra bread in clay ovens, children gather wild greens and spring onions, and a barrel of stronger ale, brewed with precious honey for special occasions, is brought from storage. The aroma of roasting pork begins to fill the air, making your stomach growl after a day of hard labor. Your body craves the fat and protein, luxuries in this carbohydrate-heavy existence. Before the feast, you return to your dwelling where your sister has heated water, not enough for a proper bath, an unimaginable luxury, but sufficient to wash face, hands, and feet. Fresh straw covers the floor, mixed with dried herbs to mask odors in the cramped space. Geraint's made his decision, your sister says as you wash. 20 men to join Arthur's forces. The names will be announced tonight. Will I be among them? You ask, surprising yourself with the question. She studies you with concern. You've been having those dreams again, haven't you? The ones that make you speak strangely. When you nod, she continues, Merlin says they're messages from the old gods, that you're meant for something important. She makes a quick Christian cross, then adds, or perhaps Christ sends visions. Either way, Geraint listens when Merlin speaks of you. This revelation adds new dimension to your status. Not just another settler, but someone marked as different, perhaps special, by your inexplicable knowledge of another world. Your sister helps you change into better attire, a tunic with simple embroidery, a finer wool cloak. Status here isn't displayed through gaudy jewelry, but through subtle indicators, tighter weaving, small decorative touches, slightly richer natural dyes. As you dress, your sister's husband returns from the forge, his arms streaked with soot and fresh burns. Geraint checked the spear points. He reports while washing. He's serious about this Arthur alliance. Do you think it's wise? Your sister asks, scrubbing a stubborn smudge from his neck. He considers carefully. If this Arthur truly understands Roman tactics, how to use disciplined formations against Saxon bands, then yes. We can't defeat them settlement by settlement. We need unity. Unity, that rarest commodity in post-Roman Britain where tribal divisions run deep beneath the vanished Roman administration. Clean and dressed, you head toward the central hall where torches and rushlights now illuminate the transformed space. Long tables and benches replace the morning's open area. The central hearth blazes, its smoke escaping through the roof hole. People gradually fill the hall, not just warriors but families, elders, the entire community. Such gatherings serve multiple purposes, strengthening bonds, facilitating matchmaking, settling minor disputes through informal mediation. You find a place among ordinary folk, farmers, craftsmen, hunters rather than at the high table where Geraint, the messenger, and Merlin sit in places of honor. Pass the bread, says Gwyn, a farmer whose hands bear permanent soil stains. Gods, I was hungry. Nothing like breaking soil to empty your belly. The coarse dark bread bears little resemblance to modern loaves. Dense, made from roughly ground barley and spelt. But after a day's labor, it tastes divine. Heard you were at the meeting. Gwyn continues between bites. This Arthur, real deal or just another loudmouth warlord? Before you answer, elderly Cater leans in. I fought with Ambrosius Aurelianus in my youth. Now there was a leader. Roman blood, Roman training. If Arthur learned from him, might be worth something. Roman blood means nothing now, another counters. Been 40 years since last tax collector. Good riddance. This ambivalence toward Rome is common. respect for its order and prosperity mixed with resentment of its taxes and foreign rule. Midway through the meal, Geraint stands for announcements. "Friends," he begins, "we've heard Arthur of Dumnonia's call against the Saxon advance. I've decided to answer it." Murmurs ripple through the crowd, some approving, some anxious. 20 men will join Arthur's forces, carrying our weapons, hopes, and commitment to the British cause. As he reads names from precious parchment, each brings reactions, pride from some, worry from others. Your name is among them, sparking mixed emotions, pride at being chosen, anxiety about what lies ahead, curiosity about meeting the historical Arthur. The messenger speaks again, now rested and fed. "Arthur thanks you for your support. Your men will join others from western kingdoms. Together we'll show the Saxons Britain remains strong, that Rome's spirit lives in our courage and discipline." Though the rousing speech brings cheers, you notice some remain silent, their troubled faces reflecting doubts about this alliance. As the feast continues, a musician appears with a small harp, not the elaborate instrument of later courts, but a simple handheld lyre. The gathering quiets as Taliesin, for so you learn his name is, begins playing haunting melodies that blend British and Latin phrases. Even Arthur would come listen, someone whispers. You notice the warlord himself standing at the gathering's edge, his face thoughtful in the firelight. This oral tradition, music and poetry preserving cultural memory, becomes increasingly vital as written records fade. Between songs, a young woman named Rian approaches. Her family farms adjacent land to your sister's. In this world where marriages are practical arrangements, her persistent interest in you stands out. "So you're joining Arthur's men," she says, her fingers brushing yours as she hands you a cup. "When do you leave?" "With the messenger in 2 days, weather permitting. My brother won a fight 3 summers ago," she says softly, "with a warband from Glevum. We've had no word since." This casual mention of disappearance, no death notification, no body, highlights this era's harsh realities. "I'm sorry," you say sincerely. She shrugs with forced brightness. "It's how things are. Will you dance?" The simple folk dances, circle patterns with hand clapping and basic steps, are familiar to all, learned from childhood. Even in hard times, music and dance remain essential for community bonding and temporary escape from daily struggles. Rian's hand feels calloused but warm in yours. For a brief interval, concerns about Saxons and survival fade. Later, as the feast winds down, you notice Merlin watching you intently from the high table. When your eyes meet, he raises his cup slightly, a gesture that might be simple toast or something more significant. After most have left, he approaches. "A word, Bedwer," he says quietly, leading you outside where stars blanket the sky, far brighter than in your light-polluted modern world. Merlin's dwelling, near the settlement's edge, serves as both home and workshop. Herbs hang drying from rafters, shelves hold clay pots of salves, a table bears precious parchment scraps. Unlike other single-room homes, his space is divided, living quarters separate from his healing work area. Lighting an oil lamp, a luxury likely salvaged from Roman ruins, he studies you. "You're having the dreams again," he states bluntly. When you describe fragments of your other life, metal carriages, sky-touching buildings, instant communication devices, Merlin listens intently. "Several possibilities," he finally says. "Simplest, you've heard travelers' tales that your sleeping mind weaves vividly." You shake your head. "These aren't places that exist here." "The world is vast," he counters, though his tone suggests he doesn't fully believe this explanation either. Another possibility, the old gods show visions of possible futures. Or, he says more quietly, you exist partly in another world entirely. This idea, of thin places between worlds, was known to Druids but now risks Christian accusations of heresy. Rising, he retrieves a small chest, removing a cloth-wrapped bundle. "Merlin sent this. Said you should have it." Unwrapping it reveals something shockingly out of place, a broken modern wristwatch. This was found on you when discovered unconscious near the old stone circle 2 winters past, Merlin explains. "I kept it, believing it significant. The watch's cracked face represents tangible proof your other life wasn't mere dream. But how did it cross between worlds? And why can't you remember the transition? Before you can ponder further, shouting erupts at the settlement gates. A breathless rider, one of Camelot's hunters, reports Saxon raiders moving along the old Roman road. 20, maybe 30 men, he gasps as Geraint emerges. The settlement erupts into defensive action. Men grab spears. Women usher children to the stone storehouse, the one Roman building offering real protection if the palisade is breached. Geraint takes command, guards to north and south walls. You assigned to protect non-combatants. Inside the storehouse, women arm themselves with knives and improvised weapons. They've survived raids before. Rian grips her niece's hand, giving you a tense nod as you bar the heavy door. Stay here. Open only for Geraint's voice or mine. Outside, men take positions along the palisade. The wooden wall, no grand castle fortification but sharpened logs set deep in earth, proves surprisingly effective against small raiding parties. Torches illuminate the perimeter but create as many shadows as they dispel. There, someone hisses. Distant moving lights, Saxon torches, approach without stealth, which troubles veterans. Raiders who don't fear detection are either supremely confident or desperately dangerous. Why attack at night? A young man whispers. Raiders usually come at dawn. Because they're not just raiders, an older warrior growls. Look at their formation. Those are warriors, not thieves. Indeed, the approaching force moves with disturbing discipline. Saxons learning Roman tactics. Someone mutters, God help us. This is the great fear. The enemy adopting the very strategies that gave Rome, and now Arthur, their advantage. Geraint moves along the defenses, checking positions, offering quiet encouragement. He wears a mail shirt, a rare heirloom, and carries a fine steel sword, both marking his status. Stand firm, he tells the defenders. Together we're stronger than any raiding party. The Saxon force halts just beyond bowshot. One figure steps forward, torch held high. Men of Camelot, I am Osric of the East Saxons, bearing terms from my lord. What terms would raiders offer but our deaths? Geraint calls back. Not raiders, settlers, Osric replies. These lands will be Saxon by summer's end. But my lord is merciful. Acknowledge his rule. Pay tribute, and you may remain. The audacity shocks. Not just a raid for supplies, but a declaration of permanent conquest. These lands were British before Rome, and will remain so after your bones are dust, Geraint retorts. Osric laughs. Bold words. We'll see if your Arthur saves you when we return in force at next full moon. Be ready with your answer, or your weapons. The Saxons withdraw without attacking. This was a message, a psychological tactic to instill fear and doubt. And it works. As immediate danger passes, worried discussions break out along the palisade. How did they know about Arthur's alliance? Do they have spies? Geraint calls for double night watches and a morning council, but privately tells Merlin. This changes everything. The Saxons are coordinating their efforts against Arthur's alliance. Turning to you, he says, Bedwer, you'll leave at first light with the chosen men. Tell Arthur what happened here tonight. This wasn't random raid, but strategic move in a larger conflict. The struggle for Britain escalating from isolated skirmishes toward organized warfare. As you help secure the gates, you reflect on how different this is from Arthurian legends. No shining knights or chivalric codes, just communities fighting for survival, leaders trying to preserve civilization's fragments against overwhelming odds. Returning to the storehouse, you unbar the door. Rian meets your eyes. Is it true? You're leaving tomorrow. Yes. Geraint wants Arthur warned immediately. May your God protect you, she says softly. Whichever one you favor. The common blessing acknowledges this era's religious blending, Christianity coexisting with older beliefs. Later, as you prepare for sleep, your sister watches worriedly. Merlin says you'll return. He's seen it in the smoke. You're unsure whether to find this comforting or ominous. I'll return, you promise, hoping it's true. Outside, the night feels different. The Saxon ultimatum has shifted something fundamental. This is no longer about scattered raids, but the future of Britain itself, whether it remains culturally British or becomes Saxon land. Somewhere west, Arthur tries rallying fragmented kingdoms against this tide. Tomorrow you'll join that effort, seeing for yourself whether he's the figure of legend or just another warlord making desperate claims. As you settle onto your sleeping platform, body aching from the day's labor and evening's alarm, you wonder about the Real Arthur. Did he have Excalibur, a Guinevere, a Merlin? Or were these embellishments added centuries later? Sleep comes quickly, but your dreams mix modern memories with battle visions. Saxons advancing toward Camelot's walls, a man in Roman-style armor rallying British warriors, the raw material of legend taking shape before your eyes. Dawn arrives with a muted glow as your group assembles at Camelot's gates. 20 chosen men clutching simple bundles of possessions and weapons, most never having traveled more than a day's journey from home. Geraint addresses you with morning breath visible in the crisp air. Remember, you represent Camelot. Show Arthur we maintain Roman discipline. Though Roman discipline is more aspiration than reality these days, no one contradicts him. Merlin approaches as others say farewells, pressing a small leather pouch into your hand. For fever and wounds, he murmurs. The road west isn't safe. The herbs inside represent generations of gathered knowledge, a significant gift. And Bedware, he adds, voice dropping further. When you meet Arthur, watch closely. The stories men tell about themselves reveal much. Before you can ask his meaning, the messenger Drewstan signals departure. With minimal ceremony, your group files through the gates onto muddy tracks beyond, some family members watching from the palisade, most already at daily tasks. Life continues regardless of politics. The journey begins in silence, each man lost in thought as you follow deteriorating Roman roads. Once magnificent stone highways now crumbling, trees growing through cracks, sections pillaged for building materials, yet still the best routes through Britain's landscape. By midday, you settle into the rhythm of walking. Drewstan sets an efficient pace, clearly familiar with this route. How long to Arthur's stronghold? Someone asks during rest. For days if weather holds, Drewstan replies. Longer if spring rains swell rivers. For days through unfamiliar territory where each settlement could be friend or foe, where Saxon patrols might appear without warning. Your hand instinctively checks the ashwood spear strapped to your back, its iron tip forged by your brother-in-law. The first night finds you camping in ruins of a Roman way station, crumbling walls offering scant wind protection. Watches are organized. No one sleeps deeply, each man startling at unfamiliar night sounds. The second day brings relentless drizzle seeping through wool cloaks into boots. Travel's harsh reality with no inns or carriages, just trudging through mud while water trickles down your neck. Saxons won't raid in this, a man comments optimistically. Too wet for bowstrings. Unless they use Roman composite bows, another counters. Those work in rain. My grandfather took one from a dead auxiliary. Such snippets reveal how Roman knowledge persists, yet fragments. Once common technical details, now half-remembered family stories. Near midday, you encounter merchants with a bony mule pulling a cart. Drewstan approaches cautiously, but they prove friendly Britons trading salt, spices, and sewing supplies between settlements. They share news for shelter under your rain covers. Arthur gathered 500 men last month, one says, chewing dried meat. Crushed Saxons near the old lead mines. Sent them home naked. Chuckles follow. Small victories matter. He's fortifying Cadbury Hill, rebuilding ramparts, digging ditches. They say he's got men trained in Roman siegecraft. And the Saxons? Drewstan asks. The merchant's face darkens. Took another settlement near Aquis Sulis. Killed men. Enslaved women and children. He spits. Not just raiding anymore. Bringing families, livestock, setting up kingdoms. This confirms Camelot's fears, Saxons transitioning from raids to permanent settlement. As rain eases, your journey continues westward through increasingly hilly terrain where Roman roads vanish entirely, replaced by winding tracks following natural contours. You pass ancient standing stones and hill forts predating Rome, sacred springs now adorned with Christian crosses alongside older symbols. Older Britain less touched by Roman influence. By late afternoon, Drewstan points to a hill dominating the landscape. Cadbury, Arthur's stronghold. The steep-sided hill fort's flattened summit buzzes with activity even at distance. Movement, smoke, weapon glints. Below, fields are worked by peasants supporting the warriors above. Arthur understands armies need feeding. The path up proves deliberately steep for defense. Your legs burn from the climb after 4 days' travel. Near the summit, you encounter the first defenses. Freshly rebuilt ditches and banks topped with wooden palisades. Guards halt your party, more disciplined than typical settlement sentries, wearing similar clothing but with uniform shield designs, red dragons on green fields. After inspection, you're admitted through the gates. Inside Cadbury Hill Fort, organized chaos reigns. What might have been an empty ceremonial center now teems with military purpose. Wooden buildings cluster along planned streets, Roman order imposed on ancient British site. In an open area, men train in shield formations under a scarred veteran's Latin-tinged commands. This disciplined operation starkly contrasts with Camelin's ad hoc defenses. Drewstan leads you to a large roundhouse. Unlike rectangular Roman-style buildings, this follows ancient British circular design, but larger for gatherings. Wait here, he instructs. I'll inform Arthur of your arrival. While waiting, you observe warriors from different British kingdoms identifiable by distinct clothing, weapons, and hairstyles. Some using Roman military gear, others traditional British arms. The hybrid culture of post-Roman Britain. A tall man with commanding presence approaches, wearing simple wool tunic and trousers distinguished only by quality weaving and an ornate cloak pin. At his waist hangs a sword in plain leather scabbard. "The men from Camelot," he says. "Welcome to Cadbury. I'm Bedwer, Arthur's shield bearer." The name jolts you. One of Arthur's legendary knights. Here a flesh and blood warrior with calloused hands and wind-weathered face. No romantic trappings. "Arthur will see you tomorrow," Bedwer continues. "Tonight you'll rest. Garan will show you where to sleep and store weapons. The practicalities of military life, no grand ceremonies." This Arthur runs a tight operation. Garan, a serious youth, leads you to Roman-style barracks, sleeping platforms along walls, central aisle with spaced fire pits. "Meals at dawn and dusk," he explains. "Training tomorrow. Weapons stored in armory except when needed. Latrine's east wall. Foul elsewhere, and you'll answer to Kai." Kai, another legendary name. Kay in later tales. Here Arthur's stern enforcer. After storing weapons in the well-guarded armory, one of few tile-roof structures, you're led to a cooking area for barley porridge, bread, salted meat, weak ale, standard military rations, but more consistent than many settlements provide. As you eat, you observe Cadbury's warriors. Over 200 men from across Western Britain clustering by origin, speaking different British dialects with occasional Latin, terms for concepts lacking native words. A scarred veteran named Boris sits beside you. "Camelot, eh? Long journey." He's from Venta Belgarum, joined Arthur's first warband after the Leadmine's victory. "You fought before?" "Some, you admit, mostly against raiders." "Good. Arthur needs experienced men. Too many farm boys here." Boris, another legendary figure stripped of romance. Just a battle-hardened warrior recognizing his kind. "Arthur likes British names," he remarks. "Says we fight for Britain, not Rome's ghost." Then, confidentially, "Though between us, he uses more Roman tactics than he admits." This reveals Arthur's balancing act, British identity with Roman military methods. After eating, you explore Cadbury's summit, commanding miles of visibility in all directions, perfect for spotting threats. Defenses impress. Multiple ditch and bank systems reinforced with palisades, ancient earthworks rebuilt for new purposes. At the highest point stands a stone building unlike others, rectangular, with salvaged Roman masonry and tile roof, guarded entrance, clearly Arthur's headquarters. As you watch, a man emerges accompanied by 2 others. Even at distance, his bearing marks him as leader. He gestures toward western defenses, clearly discussing improvements. Is this Arthur? From afar, he seems ordinary, medium height, solid build, dark hair cut Roman short, trimmed beard, dressed like his men, but with slightly better quality clothing, armed practically without ostentation, nothing suggesting the legendary king. A horn sounds, signal for day's end. Men move to quarters, fires banked, voices lower, military discipline evident in smooth transitions. You return to your barracks, finding a sleeping platform. The straw mattress is thin, wool blanket rough, but after 4 days' travel, any horizontal surface feels luxurious. Around you, Camelot men whisper about Cadbury's organization, impressed by the armory's Roman spears and mail shirts, some skeptical about untested warriors. Borst says they've won 3 battles. Borst could be lying or mistaken. The skepticism reflects this world's harshness. Grand claims often prove hollow. Leaders rise and fall rapidly. Hope frequently disappoints. As talk fades and men sleep, you ponder tomorrow. Will you meet Arthur? Will he match Drustan's descriptions? What role will you play in preserving British culture against Saxon expansion? These questions follow you into dreams blending modern memories with battle visions. Saxons advancing toward Camelot, a Roman armored man rallying British warriors, the raw material of legend forming around you. Morning comes with blaring horns. Military day starts before dawn, maximizing daylight. You rise with others for hurried breakfast before reporting to the training ground where Borst waits, critically eyeing newcomers. 20 from Camelot, he announces to his unit. Some have fought raiders. They'll join shield wall training. To your group, show me what you know. Form a line, shields overlapping. Your group complies, arranging as Geraint taught, wooden rounds with iron bosses forming a defensive wall. Borst adjusts stances and shield angles, his meticulous corrections revealing the gulf between Camelot's survival-level training and Cadbury's disciplined approach. Not bad, he grudges, but not enough against organized Saxons. His men demonstrate perfection, not just a line, but a coordinated unit where every shield and spear aligns precisely. That's the difference between warriors and soldiers. Arthur builds soldiers. The morning exhausts you, forming walls, advancing in formation, responding to commands, maintaining discipline during simulated attacks. By midday, your arms ache from holding shields, legs burn from proper stances, sweat soaks your tunic despite cool air. Better, Borst concedes. Not good, but better. His reluctant praise means more than florid compliments would. During the midday meal, same as breakfast, you notice heightened activity around Arthur's headquarters, messengers coming and going. Saxon movement near the lead mines, Gareth explains. Scouts reported yesterday. Arthur's expecting this, testing our response times. Will we march? Someone asks anxiously. Gareth shrugs. Arthur decides. But we train for reason. Afternoon drills shift focus, breaking camp efficiently, marching in formation, setting defensive positions in varied terrain, practical skills for mobile warfare. As training ends, Borst addresses everyone. Be ready. Tonight, check weapons and gear. We may move at dawn. The possibility of imminent action electrifies the camp. Men inspecting spear points for rust, checking shield bindings, inventorying meager possessions. Remembering your promised meeting with Taliesin, you head toward the healer's quarters at camp's edge as others prepare for potential departure. The stone building is warm inside, herbs hanging from rafters creating complex aromas, some pleasant, others medicinal sharp. Taliesin sits grinding leaves in a mortar, unsurprised at your arrival. Bedwer of Camelot, he says, gesturing to a stool. We've much to discuss and little time. He listens intently as you describe your dreams, metal carriages, towering buildings, communication devices, and the sense of displacement. Many possibilities, he finally says. Simplest, traveler's tales woven into vivid dreams. You shake your head. These aren't places existing here. The world is vast, he counters, though his tone suggests doubt. Another possibility, old gods show future visions. Or, he says quietly, you're not fully of this world. This strikes close to your secret thoughts. There are ancient stories of people existing in two worlds simultaneously, thin places where boundaries grow permeable. He studies your reaction. Dangerous ideas in Christian times. Do you believe such things? I believe much remains unexplained, he smiles. Christians have their mysteries. Why shouldn't older traditions? Rising, he retrieves a cloth-wrapped bundle from a chest. Merlin sent this. Said you should have it. Unwrapping reveals something shockingly out of place. A broken modern wristwatch. Found on you when discovered unconscious near stone circles 2 winters past. Merlin kept it, believing it significant. The watch, tangible proof your other life wasn't imagination. But how did it cross between worlds? Before you can ponder, horns blast. 3 long notes cutting through evening quiet. The muster call, Taliesin says grimly. Arthur marches. We'll continue this another time, if fates allow. You pocket the watch and hurry back as Camelot men gather gear. Saxon band, near lead mines. Someone explains breathlessly. Larger than expected. Arthur's taking the full force to intercept before they reach settlements. This is it. Your first experience of Arthur's military machine in action. The historical reality behind legends of campaigns and battles. Not quests for magical items, but practical defense of farmlands against existential threats. The camp transforms with impressive efficiency. Units forming, supplies distributed, horses saddled for scouts. The discipline Arthur instilled proves its worth as hundreds prepare without chaos. Bors finds your group. We march in half an hour. Light loads, full water skins, 3 days' rations. He studies your faces in fading light. Stay together. Follow orders. Remember training. Simple instructions for men facing first major action. No stirring speeches about glory, just practical survival advice. Arthur appears, moving among gathered forces, speaking with unit leaders, checking preparations. He stops near your group. The men from Camelot, Bors says. Quick learners, they'll hold their place. Arthur assesses you. Good. We'll need every shield. Addressing you directly. This isn't a skirmish. Over 100 Saxon warriors, well-armed, experienced leaders. They aim to control the mining region. His bluntness dispels romantic notions. This will be brutal fighting against determined enemies. We march tonight. Strike at dawn when they're least prepared. Shield wall center, mounted flanks, archers supporting. To Bors, your unit takes right center, linking with Geraint's men. The plan is simple but effective, leveraging disciplined training against Saxon individualism. Questions? There are none. His leadership inspires confidence through competence, not divine right claims. As Arthur moves to next unit, you notice his sword. Later legends would call it Excalibur with magical properties. In Torchlight, it's just an excellent but ordinary weapon. Fine steel with worn leather hilt, well used but cared for. A practical tool for a practical leader. The force departs Cadbury as full darkness falls. Hundreds moving orderly down the hill for its path. Torches extinguish once on land tracks to avoid alerting Saxon scouts. The night march proves grueling. Uneven paths, poor visibility, weapons and gear growing heavier each mile. Men stumble but are steadied by comrades. No complaints. This is 6th century warfare's reality. Near midnight, a brief rest allows water and hard bread. Arthur moves among men during pause, checking conditions, offering quiet encouragement, sharing hardships rather than commanding from safety. This aspect, personal participation in danger, would become central to his legend. The king who fights alongside his men, risking himself for his people. The march resumes, through night's deepest hours when exhaustion peaks and resolve is tested hardest. Some doze while walking, others chew mint leaves to stay alert. Pre-dawn finds you approaching the mining region where Saxon warriors camp. Scouts confirm. The enemy lies just beyond the next rise. Night watch minimal. Position vulnerable to Arthur's approach. Final preparations are whispered. Units form battle positions. Shields get last checks. Spears grip with sweaty hands despite cool air. Arthur moves to front center. Visible to all forces in growing light. He draws his sword, not dramatically but efficiently. No battle speech follows, just a hand signal. The historical Arthur leads through actions, not theatrics. As dawn's first light breaks, horns sound. The shield wall advances perfectly, each warrior's shield overlapping, spears bristling. Flank riders prepare to encircle. From your right center position, you see Saxon confusion as they scramble for weapons, trying to form defenses but caught unprepared by Arthur's disciplined advance. At 10 paces, Arthur's sword drops. The wall charges while maintaining formation. The collision sounds like thunder, wood on wood, metal on metal, British and Saxon shouts. Combat is nothing like later medieval tales of individual heroics. It's a grinding collective effort, the shield wall inching forward, men thrusting spears through gaps, maintaining formation against Saxon warriors trying to break through. You act on training and instinct, shield braced, spear thrusting, feet planted firmly. No time for fear, only survival's immediate demands. Arthur fights at the line's center, not as a king above his men, but as a warrior among equals. His sword, later legend's Excalibur, rises and falls with deadly efficiency, no wasted motion. Gradually, Arthur's discipline tells. The Saxon line bends, breaks in places. When their leader falls, a giant with golden armoring who faced Arthur directly, resistance collapses. Some Saxons flee east, others surrender, a few fight to the end. The battle ends as suddenly as it began, the field quiet except for wounded groans and exhausted breathing. Arthur's forces maintain formation until he signals stand down. Discipline preserved even in victory. Aftermath brings no glorious celebrations. Men search for injured comrades, bind wounds with cloth strips, give water to dying from both sides. The dead are laid in rows, British warriors for honorable burial, Saxons with basic dignity. Arthur's way, respect for all warriors regardless of allegiance. You help with wounded, applying Merlin's medicines to cuts, offering water. Combat's reality is brutal and leaves even victors bloodied and exhausted. Arthur moves among survivors, checking injuries, commending courage, ensuring proper care. Reaching your group, he pauses. You fought well. Camelot chose wisely. This simple acknowledgement, not flowery praise, means more than elaborate honors would. As day progresses, order returns. Wounded prepared for transport to Cadbury. Scouts monitoring retreating Saxons. Mining areas secured with garrison. By evening, campfires to the field as Arthur's forces rest before returning home. The mood is subdued, victory tempered by losses, exhaustion limiting celebration. Men speak quietly of fallen comrades, of battles turning points, of what this means for the larger Saxon threat. Near central fire, Taliesin plays harp softly, comfort through music. Arthur sits nearby, face thoughtful in firelight as he considers both today's victory and ongoing challenges. You find a quiet spot to process your experiences. This is Arthur's Britain, not romantic legend, but a harsh world where civilization hangs by a thread, where people fight to preserve fragments of fading order against forces that would reshape the land completely. Yet within this reality, you see seeds of enduring legend. Arthur's leadership, loyal warriors, attempts to maintain Roman discipline in post-Roman world. These would transform through centuries of retelling into familiar Arthurian cycle. The historical Arthur, if this warlord is indeed that figure, is more impressive in practical reality than romantic embellishment. Not a magical king, but a leader fighting impossible odds to preserve civilization when collapse seems inevitable. As night deepens and exhaustion overcomes reflection, you lie back under stars shining clearer than any in your light-polluted modern world. This is your reality now. A warrior in Arthur's forces, part of historical events that will someday transform into Britain's greatest legend. Not wielding Excalibur or seeking holy grails, but maintaining shield walls against Saxon advance, preserving what can be saved of fading civilization. Sleep comes easily, dreams quieter now, less troubled by world clashing. Perhaps you're finding your place here, contributing to fragile hopes while accepting harsh truths. And perhaps centuries hence, someone will tell Arthur's story, embellished with magic and romance, but preserving this essential truth. In Britain's darkest hour, people stood together against history's tide, fighting not just to survive, but to preserve knowledge, culture, and identity that might otherwise have been lost forever. Their names would change, Bedwyr becoming Bedivere, Kai becoming Kay, Taliesin merging with Merlin as Merlin, their deeds magnified, their ordinary courage transformed into legend. But something of their spirit would endure, inspiring generations yet unborn. Victorious but exhausted warriors marching at a reduced pace. The battle's adrenaline has faded, leaving muscles aching from the strain of maintaining shield wall formations and limbs heavy with fatigue. Yet there's an undercurrent of quiet satisfaction among the men, not the boisterous celebration of later medieval tales, but the sober pride of farmers and craftsmen who've proven themselves against seasoned warriors. As you walk beside the litter bearing one of Camelin's wounded, a young man named Dafydd who took a Saxon axe to the shoulder, you notice Arthur moving steadily among the marching columns. He checks on the injured, exchanges quiet words with unit leaders, and occasionally helps shoulder a litter when the terrain grows rough. This is leadership as these people understand it. Not distant commands from horseback, but shared burdens and visible concern for each man's welfare. Does it hurt much? You ask Dafydd as you adjust your grip on the litter poles. His face is pale beneath the dirt and dried blood, but he manages a tight smile. Less than the Saxon's axe did, he rasps, then winces as the litter jostles over a rut in the track. You signal for a brief halt to let him rest, propping the litter carefully on a tree stump while Taliesin checks the bandages. The old healer's hands move with practiced efficiency, his harp now slung across his back as he tends the wounded with the same care he gives his music. When you finally crest the last hill and see Cadbury's fortified summit again in the late afternoon light, a murmur of relief passes through the column. Sentries spot your approach and sound horns in recognition. 3 short blasts followed by 1 long. The signal for returning forces. By the time you reach the gates, a crowd has gathered to greet the warriors. Their faces a mix of joy at seeing loved ones return and apprehension as they search for those who may not have come back. The families of Camelin's contingent cluster together near the front, and you see your sister's face light up as she spots you. She pushes through the crowd, her eyes quickly assessing your condition. The cuts on your arms from Saxon blades, the bruise darkening along your jawline, but most importantly, that you're standing on your own 2 feet. You're whole, she says simply, and you can hear the unspoken prayers of thanks in those 2 words. Behind her, your brother-in-law the smith nods approvingly at the state of your weapons. The spear tip still sharp, the shield bearing fresh scars of battle but intact. You used them well, is all he says, but from a man of few words, it's high praise. As the crowd parts to admit the wounded, you help carry Dafydd to the healing house, where Taliesin and his apprentices will tend the more serious injuries. The young warrior grips your arm as you set him down. I owe you my life, Bedwyr, he says solemnly. You shake your head. You'd have done the same. And you know it's true. This is how Arthur's men operate, watching each other's backs not out of obligation, but because their lives depend on it. That night, the hill fort celebrates, not with the wild revelry of legend, but with quiet gatherings around cook fires where men share stories of the battle while women listen intently, storing up these accounts to retell in future winters. The mood is tempered by remembrance of those who didn't return. 8 men from Arthur's forces who now lie buried near the battlefield, their names spoken with respect, but without the elaborate mourning rituals of later medieval romance. You find yourself sitting with Boris and Gareth near one of the smaller fires, a cup of unusually strong mead in your hands, a rare luxury reserved for such occasions. The veteran is showing a nasty cut along his forearm where a Saxon blade found its mark. Lucky strike, he grumbles as Gareth helps bind it with a clean strip of linen. Bastard was dead before he hit the ground, but his sword kept coming. You recognize this phenomenon from your modern knowledge. the involuntary muscle spasms that can make even a slain warrior's limbs twitch. But here it's taken as evidence of Saxon ferocity. As the fire crackles and the mead warms your belly, the conversation turns to what comes next. They'll be back, Bors predicts, tossing a twig into the flames. Saxons don't take defeat lightly. Gareth nods agreement. That was just a war band, not even a proper army. If they start sending real numbers. He leaves the thought unfinished, but everyone understands the implication. Arthur's victories have been against raiding parties and scouting forces, not the mass migrations history tells you are coming. Your hand drifts to the pocket where the broken watch rests. A tangible reminder that your knowledge of Saxon expansion's ultimate success sets you apart from these men who fight with such determined hope. The weight of that knowledge feels heavier tonight, watching these warriors relax in hard-won peace, unaware of the tides of history moving against them. The next morning brings the more mundane aspects of military life. Weapons to clean and repair, armor to mend, training to resume despite the recent victory. Arthur moves through the morning inspections with the same focused attention he showed before battle, pausing here and there to compliment a well-maintained weapon or point out where equipment could be improved. When he reaches your group, he stops to examine your shield, its surface bearing fresh scars from Saxon axes. "You held the line well," he says, running a finger along one particularly deep gash. "This would have been a killing stroke if your stance had faltered." It's typical of Arthur's leadership style, specific praise coupled with practical lessons. He's not building an army of heroes, but a force where each man understands how his individual actions contribute to the whole. As he moves on to the next group, you notice Kai, his second in command, following with a wax tablet, noting which warriors need replacement gear and which units suffered heaviest losses. The administrative details behind maintaining a fighting force, far from the romantic visions of courtly knights, but just as vital to Arthur's success. Later that day, you're summoned to Arthur's headquarters, not for some grand ceremony, but to provide first-hand account of Camelin's Saxon encounter to his war council. Inside the stone building, the air is thick with the smell of parchment and lamp oil as Arthur, Kai, Bedwer, and several other leaders gather around a large table bearing a crude map of Western Britain. Small stones mark known Saxon positions, while carved wooden pieces represent British forces. Arthur gestures for you to approach. "Tell them exactly what you saw and heard at Camelot," he instructs, his dark eyes intent. You describe the Saxon party's arrival, their demands for submission, the ultimatum to return by next full moon. As you speak, Kai moves stones on the map, adding new Saxon positions near Camelot and adjusting others. The emerging pattern is troubling, a tightening noose of Saxon pressure from east and south. When you finish, Arthur strokes his short beard thoughtfully. "They're testing us," he concludes, probing different settlements to see where resistance is strongest. He points to the map. Camelot's behind old Roman walls, a harder target than open villages. They'll hit softer targets first. His finger traces possible routes along river valleys and old Roman roads, the pathways Saxon warbands favor. The strategic discussion continues with Arthur drawing on both Roman military texts and local knowledge, another example of his hybrid approach blending the best of both worlds. Plans are made to reinforce vulnerable settlements, establish better warning systems between hill forts, and train more men in the disciplined tactics that gave his forces their edge in battle. As the council breaks up, Arthur motions for you to remain. When the others have left, he fixes you with that piercing gaze. Merlin says you have unusual insights. He chooses his words carefully, clearly aware of your strange dreams, but perhaps not fully understanding their nature. What do your instincts say about the Saxon threat? The question catches you off guard. How to answer without revealing impossible knowledge. They're not just raiders anymore, you say carefully. They're bringing families, livestock, planning to stay. And there are more of them coming. Many more. You hesitate, then add. This isn't just about land. It's about whose gods will rule Britain. Arthur's eyes narrow slightly at this last part, the religious dimension being particularly sensitive in this transitional period. He nods slowly. We'll need more alliances then. Stronger defenses. Better trained men. He says it matter-of-factly, as if preparing for harsh weather rather than existential threat. You'll stay with us, Bedwer of Camelot. There's work for men who see clearly. And with that simple statement, your path is set. No elaborate oaths of fealty, just pragmatic recognition of useful skills. As you leave the headquarters, you spot Taliesin waiting near the door, his harp case slung across his back. Walk with me, he says, and you fall into step as he heads toward the hill fort's western edge where the setting sun paints the landscape gold. When we last spoke, you were beginning to remember. He begins without preamble. Has the battle stirred more memories? You touch the watch in your pocket, considering how much to reveal. Not memories exactly, but knowledge of how this ends. Taliesin stops walking, turning to study your face with those keen eyes. You see the future then? Not the future, the past. You struggle for words to explain concepts that don't exist in this time. Where I come from, this is all history. The Saxons keep coming. More and more until... You let the implication hang. No need to spell out the collapse of British resistance, the retreat into Wales and Cornwall, the slow erosion of the culture these people are fighting to preserve. Taliesin absorbs this quietly, his gaze drifting toward the sunset. Then why fight? He finally asks. If destiny is set, it's the question you've been asking yourself since the battle. Maybe, to change what can be changed, you offer. Even if the Saxons win in the end, how they win matters. How long Britain holds out, what gets preserved. You think of the watch's intricate gears, technology these people can't yet replicate, but might someday, if given time and stability. The old bard nods slowly. You sound like Arthur. He knows, not as you know, but in his bones, that he stands against the tide. Yet he fights anyway. He plucks a single harp string, the note hanging clear in the evening air. Perhaps that's why you're here. Not to change endings, but to shape how the story is told along the way. His words resonate strangely. The idea that your value lies not in altering history's broad sweep, but in influencing its finer details. The legends that will emerge from these troubled times. The fragments of Romano-British culture that might survive because men like Arthur fought to preserve them even in retreat. Over the following days, you settle into Cadbury's rhythms. Morning weapons drills, afternoon sessions where veterans teach Roman tactics adapted to British terrain, evening guard rotations where you stare into the darkness beyond the hill fort's walls. The Saxon threat feels more immediate now that you've faced them in battle. No longer abstract enemies from history books, but men whose axe blows still ache in your shield arm. Arthur keeps you busy, sometimes in training, sometimes helping Kai with logistical planning, occasionally summoned to share your unusual perspectives when strategic decisions are made. You're careful not to reveal too much future knowledge, but your general sense of Saxon movements and tactics proves valuable enough that Arthur begins inviting you to more councils. One evening, as you walk the perimeter after nightfall, you hear quiet voices near the western gate and spot Arthur deep in conversation with a hooded figure. They part quickly when you approach, the stranger melting into shadows while Arthur turns to greet you with forced casualness. All quiet? He asks, though his eyes keep flicking toward where the figure disappeared. You report no signs of trouble, pretending not to have noticed anything amiss, but the encounter leaves you curious. Spies? Scouts? Or something less mundane? The next morning brings unexpected excitement. A merchant caravan arrives from the south bearing not just trade goods, but precious news. Arthur summons his inner circle to hear their report, and to your surprise, you're included. The merchants tell of Saxon movements along the southern coasts, of British settlements holding out in fortified towns, and, most intriguingly, of a Roman ship spotted off the coast near Durnaveria. A Roman ship? Kai scoffs. The Empire abandoned Britain decades ago, but Arthur looks thoughtful. Not necessarily imperial, he muses. Could be traders or mercenaries. The merchants also bring rumors of unrest in Gaul and even whispers of a great battle coming in Italy. News that would have been stale by months or years but represents vital intelligence in this world without instant communication. As the merchants continue their report, your modern knowledge helps piece together what they're describing. The final collapse of Roman authority on the continent, the power vacuums being filled by Frankish kings and Gothic warlords. Events that seem distant but will ultimately influence how many Saxons cross to Britain as imperial defenses crumble entirely. After the merchants are dismissed to sell their wares, Arthur remains staring at the map, his fingers tracing possible connections between these disparate reports. We'll need to send scouts south, he decides. If Roman ships are appearing again, even as traders, it could mean shifts in the continental balance. His strategic thinking impresses you, seeing beyond immediate threats to larger patterns, much like a modern general might assess geopolitical shifts. That afternoon, you're assigned to help inventory the merchant goods, not just routine supplies, but specialized items Arthur's forces need. Quality iron ingots for weapons, medicinal herbs, even a few precious sheets of parchment for record keeping. The work gives you new appreciation for the logistical challenges of maintaining even this modest military force in post-Roman Britain. Every nail, every arrowhead, every scrap of decent leather represents careful planning and hard-won resources. As you tally sacks of grain, your mind keeps returning to the hooded figure Arthur met with. Was it one of these merchants? A spy in his network? Or something else entirely? You're pulled from these thoughts when a familiar voice says your name. You turn to find Rian standing there with a basket of herbs. She's come with the merchants from Camelot, bringing supplies and news from home. Geraint sends these, she says, handing over the basket wrapped in oiled cloth to protect its contents. Merlin's medicines. He thought you might need more after the battle. Her eyes scan your face, noting the fading bruises. You look different, she observes. Older. It's true, weeks of military life have hardened you. The baby fat of peaceful modernity replaced by the lean muscle of a warrior constantly in training. She stays to help with the inventory, catching you up on Camelot's news between counting measures of barley. The spring planting progressing well, a child born with a clubfoot that Merlin is treating, the ongoing repairs to the palisade where Saxon scouts have been spotted again. Ordinary life continuing despite the larger struggles, just as it always has throughout history's upheavals. That evening, Arthur announces a feast to honor the merchants and celebrate recent victories, a rare occasion when the entire hill fort comes together. The great hall fills with warriors, craftsmen, farmers, and families, the air thick with the smells of roasting meat, fresh bread, and the underlying musk of hard-working humanity. Torches flicker on walls, their smoke adding to the patina already blackening the rafters. Taliesin plays as food is served, songs of past heroes and recent battles, including one that already embellishes your own encounter with the Saxons, casting you in improbably heroic light. You shift uncomfortably as listeners glance your way during those verses. This is how legends begin, you realize, with bards transforming ordinary men into something larger than life through the alchemy of song. Arthur sits at the high table, flanked by Kai and Bedwer, listening intently to the music between conversations with visiting merchants and local leaders. He's dressed no differently than usual, no crown or royal robes, yet somehow commands attention simply by his bearing. This is the kernel of truth that will grow into the legendary king. Not pomp and ceremony, but natural leadership that draws men's loyalty. After the meal, as men relax with cups of strong ale, Arthur stands and raises his hands for quiet. "We've had good news today," he begins, his voice carrying easily through the hall. "Our southern settlements still hold, and the Saxons have troubles of their own to the east." He pauses, letting hopeful murmurs subside before continuing. "But the fight's far from over. We'll need more men, better fortifications, and stronger alliances in the months ahead." It's a practical speech, not the rousing call to glory some might expect. A leader outlining challenges and necessary work rather than promising easy victories. Yet the men listen attentively, nodding at each point. They respect this honesty, this refusal to sugarcoat their situation. When Arthur finishes by announcing new training rotations and construction projects, There are no groans, just quiet acceptance of what must be done. Later, as the feast winds down, you find yourself outside under stars remarkably bright to your light-polluted modern eyes. Arthur joins you unexpectedly, holding 2 cups of what proves to be surprisingly good wine, likely a merchant's luxury. To Camelin's bravery, he toasts, clinking his cup against yours. The wine is rich and dark, a taste of Mediterranean sunshine in this damp northern land. You've adapted well, he observes, studying your face in the moonlight. Most men take months to learn our ways, but you seem to know them already. There's a question hidden in the statement, another subtle probe about your unusual knowledge. You choose your words carefully. Where I come from, we study such things. The ways of warriors and leaders. Arthur nods as if this explains much. Then perhaps you can advise me. As one student of war to another, he sets his wine aside and pulls a small object from his belt pouch. A Roman coin. Its surface worn but the emperor's profile still visible. Constantine, he identifies it. The emperor who embraced Christ. They say he saw a cross in the sky before his great victory. He turns the coin thoughtfully between calloused fingers. Do you think signs and portents truly guide men's fates? Or do we make our own paths despite them? The question surprises you. This practical warlord considering metaphysical concepts. I think. Men make their own paths, you say slowly. But the stories we tell about those paths, they shape what others dare to attempt afterward. You're thinking of the Arthurian legends yet to come, how they'll inspire generations long after this man's bones are dust. Arthur smiles faintly, pocketing the coin. Then we'd best make sure the right stories get told, hadn't we? He claps you on the shoulder, a gesture of surprising familiarity from this usually reserved leader. Get some rest, Bedwer of Camelot. Tomorrow we build the future. As he walks away, you're left with the distinct impression that your quiet midnight conversation held more significance than its surface words suggested. The following weeks settle into a new routine. Intensive training sessions in the mornings, labor on Cadbury's expanding fortifications in the afternoons, occasional scouting missions to nearby settlements. You see Rian occasionally when merchant trains pass through, and your conversations grow easier with each meeting. 2 people from different worlds finding common ground in this turbulent time. Arthur keeps you close, often asking your opinion on tactical matters or having you demonstrate fighting techniques that blend your modern knowledge with 6th century practicality. You become something between advisor and apprentice, trusted but still tested, your unusual perspectives valued but not unquestioned. One rainy afternoon, as you help repair the Palisades North section, Kai finds you and summons you to Arthur's headquarters. Inside, Arthur stands over his map table with several scouts and Bedwer. Ah, Bedwer, he greets, using the name you've grown accustomed to in this life. We've had reports from the east, Saxons massing near the old Trinovantian lands. I'm sending a force to reinforce our allies there. He points to the map. You'll go with them. The assignment surprises you. You've become valuable to Arthur's daily operations at Cadbury. Sensing your unasked question, Arthur adds, our allies need to see what we're building here. Not just warriors, but a system that works. You understand both parts, the fighting and the planning. It's high praise from this man, a few compliments. Preparations begin immediately. Weapons to check, supplies to gather, messages to commit to memory since written dispatches might be lost or captured. That evening, as you pack your meager belongings, Taliesin appears at your quarters doorway. A moment before you go, he requests, and you follow him to his herb-scented workshop. From a locked chest, he produces a small leather-bound book, an astonishing rarity in this era of fading literacy. My writings, he explains, showing pages filled with neat Latin script interspersed with older British symbols. Observations on herbs, healing, and other things. He turns to a specific page showing a carefully drawn map of Britain with strange symbols at various points. Thin places, he says quietly, where the walls between worlds grow weak. One lies near your destination. Your pulse quickens. Does he mean a way home? As if reading your thoughts, Taliesin shakes his head. Not a passage, just a leaning between realities. but for one already touched by both worlds, it might stir memories. He closes the book and presses it into your hands. Keep this safe. There's knowledge here that shouldn't be lost. The gift's significance overwhelms you. This represents years, perhaps decades, of accumulated wisdom. I'll protect it with my life, you promise, and mean it. Taliesin smiles faintly. I know. That's why Arthur chose you for this mission. You understand what's truly worth fighting for. At dawn, you depart with 20 hand-picked warriors under Kai's command, a show of Arthur's commitment to his eastern allies. The rain has stopped, leaving the world washed clean and sparkling. As Cadbury's gates recede behind you, you glance back once to see Arthur standing atop the walls, watching your departure. He raises a hand in farewell, or perhaps in benediction. You'll never know for certain, because when your company returns 2 months later, Arthur will be gone on his own mission to the northern kingdoms, and your paths won't cross again before your own strange journey reaches its unexpected conclusion. But that's another story for another time. The eastern journey begins under leaden skies that threaten more rain. 20 warriors moving in disciplined columns along what remains of the old Roman road. Kai sets a brisk pace at the front, his scarred face set in its usual grim expression as he scans the surrounding countryside for threats. You march near the middle of the group, Taliesin's precious book wrapped in oiled leather and tucked securely inside your tunic, its weight both physical and symbolic against your chest. The first day passes without incident, the company making good progress through familiar territory where Arthur's influence holds strong. At dusk, you make camp in the ruins of a Roman villa, just crumbling walls and partial foundations now, but the hypocaust system still provides some shelter from the damp spring chill. As men build cooking fires and check equipment, Kai calls you over to examine the map with him. We'll follow this road 2 more days, he mutters, tracing the route with a calloused finger. Then cut northeast toward the old Trinovantian lands. The Saxons have been pushing up the river valleys. His tactical assessment is crisp and professional. No wasted words, just the essential information. This is why Arthur trusts him with important missions. Kai understands both strategy and logistics in a way few of these post-Roman warriors do. As night falls, the veterans among the group take first watch while newer recruits like yourself try to rest. Sleep comes fitfully on the hard ground, your dreams fragmented with images of modern life bleeding into this ancient world. A car's engine roar transforming into distant thunder, a smartphone's glow becoming the embers of the dying fire. The watch changes twice before dawn's gray light filters through the ruins, waking the camp to another day's march. The landscape changes gradually as you move east, more abandoned villas and overgrown fields, fewer functioning settlements. By midday of the 3rd day, you encounter the first signs of recent Saxon activity. A burned-out farmstead, its fields trampled and livestock gone. Kai orders extra caution as you approach, weapons at the ready in case ambush awaits. But the destruction is days old, the attackers long moved on. Only the stench of death remains, 2 bodies left unburied near what was once the main house. Savages, mutters one of the younger warriors, making the sign of the cross. But Kai's face remains impassive as he examines the scene. Not savagery, strategy, he corrects. They want word of their ruthlessness to spread ahead of them. He points to deliberate patterns in the destruction. Grain stores burned, but wine casks smashed, tools destroyed, but weapons absent. They're not just raiding, they're making sure nothing can be rebuilt here. This cold assessment chills you more than any battlefield carnage. The Saxons aren't merely attacking, they're systematically dismantling British settlement patterns, creating a buffer zone of terror where only the boldest families will dare remain. Kai orders a brief halt to bury the dead, not out of sentiment, but to deny the Saxons this psychological victory. As you help dig graves using broken roof tiles as shovels, you realize this is how Arthur's reputation spreads, through small acts of decency that contrast sharply with Saxon brutality. That evening, you make camp in a dense copse of trees well off the road. No fires are lit. Kai won't risk giving away your position. The men eat cold rations in near silence, speaking only when necessary in hushed tones. You're assigned third watch, the deepest part of the night when exhaustion wars with vigilance. It's during this quiet interval that you first sense it, a strange tingling along your skin, like static electricity before a storm, but with no clouds obscuring the starry sky. The sensation grows stronger as you pace your section of the perimeter, culminating near a moss-covered standing stone half hidden in the undergrowth. In the moonlight, you can just make out ancient carvings, spirals, and zigzag patterns worn smooth by centuries of weather. This must be one of Taliesin's thin places. Hesitantly, you reach out and place your palm against the stone's cool surface. The effect is immediate and overwhelming, a rushing sensation like falling through layers of reality. For one dizzying moment, you're neither here nor in your modern world, but suspended between, seeing flashes of both simultaneously. The moonlit forest overlain with neon city lights, the whisper of wind and leaves blending with car horns and distant sirens. Your knees buckle as the watch in your pocket grows strangely warm, its cracked face glowing faintly through the fabric of your trousers. Then just as suddenly, it's over. You find yourself on your hands and knees, gasping like a drowning man breaking surface. The stone stands innocently before you, its carvings now just old marks in weathered rock. But something has changed. Your memories of the modern world feel sharper, more immediate, as if the veil between your two lives has grown temporarily transparent. Everything all right? A hand grips your shoulder. Kai, making his rounds. You nod quickly, brushing dirt from your knees. Just tripped in the dark, you lie? He studies you for a long moment in the moonlight, then grunts. Stay sharp. We're close to Saxon territory now. As he moves on, you glance back at the standing stone, now just an ordinary relic of ancient Britain. But the experience leaves you unsettled. Was that a glimpse of a way home? Or something more complicated? The next morning brings more tangible concerns. Scouts return at dawn with news of Saxon movements. A war band of 50 or 60 men camped along a river crossing 3 miles east. Kai immediately gathers the company. Our mission is to reinforce the local British, not engage Saxons, he reminds everyone. But if we can harry this group, slow their advance. He outlines a plan using the terrain to their advantage, an ambush point where the road narrows between steep hills, forcing the Saxons into a bottleneck where their numbers won't count. You're assigned to a group of archers positioned on the western slope, not because you're particularly skilled with a bow, you're not, but because Kai wants your strategic perspective on how the battle develops. As you take position behind a fallen oak, your fingers tremble slightly while stringing your bow, not from fear exactly, but the adrenaline rush of impending violence. The watch in your pocket feels heavier now, a constant reminder that you're living history rather than reading about it. The Saxons appear mid-morning, moving confidently along the road without scouts, their first mistake. They're big men, many with the distinctive long hair and beards Saxon warriors favor, their arms laden with plunder from recent raids. From your elevated position, you can see them laughing and shoving each other like rowdy football hooligans, until Kai's signal sends a volley of arrows raining down. Chaos erupts as Saxon warriors scramble for shields and weapons. Your own arrows feel clumsy compared to the veterans around you, but even poorly aimed shots contribute to the confusion. The Saxons try to charge up the slopes, but find themselves funneled into Kai's carefully prepared killing zone, where British spearmen wait in disciplined ranks. It's not a battle so much as a slaughter. The Saxons caught completely unprepared, their numerical advantage nullified by terrain and tactics. Within minutes, the survivors break and run, leaving 24 of their comrades dead or dying on the road. Kai allows no pursuit. Our mission lies ahead, he reminds the eager younger warriors. But as you help search the Saxon dead for useful intelligence, you make a disturbing discovery. One of the bodies carries a Roman-style gladius, its pommel marked with the insignia of the long-departed 20th Legion. Looted from some tomb, Kai suggests when you show him. But the blade shows signs of recent sharpening and use, not decades of burial. The implications unsettle you. Are Saxons now using Roman weapons and tactics? Or worse, have some former Roman auxiliaries thrown in with them? You stash the sword to bring back for Arthur's inspection, another piece in the puzzle of Saxon advances. The encounter lifts the company's spirits, a clear victory with no British losses. But Kai remains characteristically dour. They'll send more, he predicts as you resume your march. And next time won't be so easy. His words prove prophetic that evening when scouts report a larger Saxon force moving rapidly toward your position. At least 100 warriors, possibly more, following the trail of their defeated comrades. Kai immediately changes plans. We can't face those numbers, he admits, a rare concession from the normally confident veteran. We'll split up. Smaller groups are harder to track. He divides the company into 4 groups of 5, each with specific routes to rally points where local British forces are said to hold out. Your group includes 2 grizzled veterans and 2 younger warriors, all looking to you as the leader, a sobering responsibility. You set off northeast under cover of darkness, moving as quietly as possible through dense woodland. The Saxon war band's torches glow like fireflies in the distance behind you, their progress slower but relentless. By midnight, you've put several miles between yourselves and pursuit, pausing in a sheltered gully to rest and check bearings. That's when the watch in your pocket grows warm again, not painfully so, but noticeably, like a living thing stirring against your thigh. The sensation intensifies as you move along a narrow game trail, culminating when you push through a screen of bushes into a small clearing. At its center stands a circle of weathered stones, some upright, others fallen, that immediately makes the hair on your arms stand up. This is no ordinary ancient monument. The air hums with energy, the same prickling sensation you felt at the previous standing stone, but magnified tenfold. One of the younger warriors makes the sign of the cross. Witchcraft, he mutters, backing away. But the veterans exchange knowing looks. Old God's place, corrects the elder, a grizzled fighter named Donald. Best we don't disturb it. But the watch is practically burning in your pocket now, and you know, with sudden certainty, that this is no coincidence. Taliesin's map marked these places for a reason. I need to check something, you tell the others. Wait here. Before they can protest, you step into the stone circle. The effect is immediate and overwhelming. A roaring in your ears like a tidal wave. A blinding light that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You have a fleeting impression of hands reaching toward you from the light. Familiar voices calling your name. Then nothing. Consciousness returns in disjointed fragments. Cold stone beneath your cheek. The taste of blood in your mouth. Worried voices arguing nearby. Not breathing. Leave him. We must. Saxon's coming. You try to move, to speak, but your limbs feel weighted down, your tongue thick and unresponsive. The watch in your pocket is now searing hot, but you can't muster the strength to remove it. Through slitted eyes, you see your companions gathered around, their faces etched with fear and indecision. Beyond them, between the trees, torchlight flickers, the Saxon pursuit drawing nearer. Donald meets your gaze and makes a decision. We'll carry him, he declares, though you can see the doubt in his eyes. Arthur's man or not, we don't leave our own. But as they move to lift you, the strange energy in the circle surges again. The air shimmers like heat haze, and suddenly your companions are stumbling back in terror as the space around you seems to. Flex is the only word for it. Reality itself bends, the forest behind them stretching and warping impossibly. The last thing you see before darkness claims you again is Donald's face, his mouth forming words you can't hear as he reaches desperately toward you. Then nothing. You wake to sterile white ceilings and the steady beep of machines. The smells of antiseptic and laundered sheets replace with smoke and damp wool. A nurse bustles into view, her modern scrubs jarring after so long in the past. Welcome back, she says cheerfully. You gave everyone quite a scare. The hospital room spins as you try to sit up. How long? You croak, your throat raw. 3 days, the nurse replies, adjusting your 4. You were found unconscious near the old stone circle, dehydrated and hypothermic. Though how in this weather? She shakes her head. The doctors couldn't find anything physically wrong with you. As she prattles on about test results, your hand drifts to your chest, not to the hospital gown you now wear, but beneath it, where Taliesin's book should be. Your fingers encounter only bare skin, but the memory of its weight feels so real you could swear it was there moments ago. The nurse notices your agitation. Your personal effects are in the drawer, she assures you. Wallet, phone, keys, and some odd broken watch the paramedics found with you. With trembling hands, you open the bedside drawer. There among your modern possessions lies the watch, its cracked face now completely dark, its gears stilled forever. But as you lift it, something extraordinary happens. For the briefest instant, you swear you smell wood smoke and hear distant harp music. Then it's gone, leaving only the sterile hospital air and the watch's cold metal in your palm. The doctors can't explain your sudden collapse or your vivid dreams of living in Arthurian Britain. They diagnose stress, dehydration, perhaps a temporal lobe seizure, modern medicine's equivalent to the old gods did it. Within a week, you're discharged with clean bills of health and stern advice to avoid ancient monuments. Life resumes its normal course: job, friends, routines of 21st century existence. But something fundamental has shifted. You find yourself staring at ordinary objects, a cast iron skillet, a wool blanket, even a child's wooden sword, and seeing them through dual perspectives, appreciating their ancient counterparts. At night, your dreams return to Cadbury Hill, to the faces of men and women who fought beside you, to Arthur's quiet leadership in dark times. Months pass. You try writing down your experiences, but the words feel flat and unconvincing even to you. The memories grow both sharper and more dreamlike, leaving you wondering what was real and what your mind constructed. Only the broken watch remains as tangible evidence. That and the inexplicable fact that you can now speak fluent early Welsh and read fragments of Latin you never studied. Then one rainy afternoon, you visit a museum exhibition on post-Roman Britain. Among the usual artifacts, pottery shards, rusted weapons, reconstructed dwellings, one display stops you cold. It's a small stone with worn carvings, its label identifying it as a 5th to 6th century boundary marker from the Cadbury area. But you recognize it instantly, not from archaeology, but from memory. This stone once stood near Arthur's headquarters, marking the division between training grounds and living quarters. As you stare, transfixed, an elderly curator notices your interest. "Fascinating piece," he remarks. "The inscription's badly worn, but we believe it bears the name of one of Arthur's companions." He points to faint markings. "Possibly Bedwer. You know, Sir Bedivere of the Round Table?" His chuckle dismisses the romantic notion. Of course, the historical Bedwer, if he existed, was probably just a local warlord's lieutenant. You don't correct him, just nod politely while your heart pounds. Because now you know, the memories are real. Arthur was no legend, but a man fighting impossible odds. Bedwer, Kai, Taliesin, they all lived and breathed and struggled to preserve light against encroaching darkness. And somehow, through mechanisms neither science nor magic can fully explain, you walked among them. Leaving the museum, you pause in the parking lot as rain mists your face. Somewhere beyond the city's glow, the stars Arthur's men navigated by still shine, unchanged by centuries. The watch in your pocket remains broken and silent, its secrets kept. But as you turn toward home, you realize you're smiling, because the greatest story ever told wasn't about kings and magic swords, but ordinary people who became extraordinary through their choices. And that story, you now understand, never truly ended. The years pass with the strange duality of dreams you can't forget and a life you must relearn. At first, you scour history books and archaeological reports, searching for any mention of Camelot or Arthur's hill fort at Cadbury. The academic consensus remains skeptical. No contemporary evidence exists for a historical Arthur, one professor dismisses during a lecture you attend. But you notice how their eyes slide away from certain artifacts in museum cases, how they hurry past inconvenient questions about post-Roman British resistance. The watch in your desk drawer mocks their certainty. One autumn afternoon, you find yourself standing before a reconstructed Iron Age roundhouse at an archaeological park, watching schoolchildren marvel at the thatched roof and central hearth. A docent explains daily life in pre-Roman Britain, but you see through the sanitized presentation to the reality, the smoke-stung eyes, the ever-present damp, the back-breaking labor of survival. A little girl asks where the toilet was, and the docent laughs while pointing to a trench outside. You alone understand how bitterly cold that trench would be on a winter's night. That night, you dream of Rian, not as the hard-faced woman of Camelot, but as she might have aged, silver threading her dark hair, her hands still strong from field work. She stands at a loom in your sister's house, weaving a pattern you recognize as the same one on the cloak pin Arthur wore. When she turns to you in the dream, her eyes hold generations of untold stories. You left too soon, she says, not accusingly but with sorrow. The best tales were just beginning. You wake with tears drying on your cheeks and an impossible longing in your chest. The digital clock reads 3:17 a.m., its glowing numbers alien after the starlit nights of Arthur's Britain. You rise and take the broken watch from its drawer, running your fingers over its motionless face as if it might suddenly were to life. But the gears remain still, the hands frozen at some forgotten hour. At dawn, you make a decision. The local university's archaeology department has a volunteer program assisting with field work. You sign up without expectations, but when Professor Lockwood, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with dirt permanently lodged under her fingernails, learns of your uncanny familiarity with post-Roman British material culture, she takes you under her wing. You've got the eye, she remarks after you correctly identify a piece of 5th century Samian ware from a pile of pottery shards. Like you've handled this stuff before. The dig is at a suspected Dark Ages settlement near the Welsh border. The team has uncovered the foundations of several roundhouses and, more intriguingly, what appears to be a small metalworking area. On your third day, brushing dirt from what looked like just another rock, your fingers uncover the unmistakable curve of a sword pommel. Your shout brings Lockwood running. "Well, I'll be damned," she breathes as you carefully expose the artifact, a rusted but still recognizable sword hilt, its style consistent with late Roman or early post-Roman Britain. "This shouldn't be here," she mutters, more to herself than you. "The settlement layers are all wrong for this period." But there it lies, undeniable proof that someone carried a weapon from a different time into this place. That night at the local pub, Lockwood nurses a whiskey while studying photographs of the find. "You know what this looks like?" she says finally. "Like someone buried it deliberately, maybe as an offering." She flips through field reports. There's a standing stone about half a mile from the site. Local legends say it's where the Britons made their last stand against the Saxons. Her eyes meet yours. You don't believe in that King Arthur nonsense, do you? The question hangs between you. You think of Arthur's pragmatic leadership, of Kai's tactical brilliance, of Bedwyr's quiet loyalty. None of them nonsense, but real people fighting real battles. "I believe," you say carefully, "that history remembers some truths in ways academia doesn't always recognize." Lockwood studies you for a long moment, then surprises you by nodding. "I've dug up too many inconvenient artifacts to dismiss legends entirely." The dig continues through the summer, uncovering more puzzling anomalies. A Roman-style brooch in a Saxon-era grave, a British coin minted with odd hybrid imagery. Each discovery sends Lockwood into scholarly raptures while making you quietly smile. The past, it seems, was never as neatly categorized as historians would prefer. One rainy afternoon, while cataloging finds in the site's makeshift lab, you handle a small bronze pendant. Its surface green with patina, but the design still clear. A dragon, wings outstretched. Your breath catches. You've seen this symbol before, emblazoned on shields at Cadbury. Lockwood notices your reaction. "Recognize it?" she asks, not entirely joking. You tell her a version of the truth, that you've studied post-Roman iconography, that the dragon was a symbol of British resistance. She listens intently, then pulls up a database on her laptop. "There are 3 other similar finds in the region," she says. all dated within 50 years of each other, all from sites associated with Arthurian legends. She leans back. Coincidence? The dig ends with more questions than answers. Lockwood invites you to assist with writing the official report, an unusual honor for a volunteer. As you help piece together the contradictory evidence, a pattern emerges that neither pure history nor pure legend can fully explain. The report's conclusion carefully states, the artifacts suggest cultural continuity between late Roman and early medieval Britain that merits further study. But in her private notes, which she shares with you, Lockwood writes, someone doesn't want us to forget Arthur. Years pass. You become something between an academic and an enthusiast, publishing carefully worded articles that bridge historical and legendary accounts of post-Roman Britain. The watch remains in its drawer, a silent witness to experiences you can never fully share. Then, on the 20th anniversary of your return, a package arrives, a battered manila envelope with a Welsh postmark. Inside lies a yellowed manuscript page in Latin, accompanied by a brief note from Professor Lockwood. Found this in the Bodleian archives while researching our old dig. Thought you'd appreciate it. P.S. Don't ask how I got it out of the library. The Latin flows easily to your eyes. Another lingering gift from your time in the past. It's a fragment from what appears to be a monk's chronicle, dated roughly to the late 6th century. The handwriting is shaky, the ink faded, but the words leap out. And in the 27th year after the Romans departed, there came to our Artorius' stronghold a man who spoke in strange tongues, yet knew our ways. He fought beside us at the Battle of the White Stones, and some said he was sent by God or the Old Ones to aid Britain in her darkest hour. When he vanished as mysteriously as he came, Artorius himself declared none should speak of it, lest the people take it for superstition rather than the sign of hope it was. But I write this now in my declining years, that truth may not be wholly lost. The page trembles in your hands. There, in dry scholarly Latin, is proof you weren't merely dreaming. Someone remembered. The chronicle even names the standing stone circle where you disappeared, the Battle of the White Stones. With sudden certainty, you know where you must go. The journey to Wales takes you through landscapes both familiar and changed. Modern roads tracing ancient paths, villages grown into towns, but still following the same river valleys, and hill contours your Saxon-era feet once trod. The standing stones are now a tourist attraction, complete with car park and interpretive signage. You arrive near closing time, when the last buses of day trippers are pulling away. Alone now, you walk the perimeter of the circle, counting the stones. Fewer remain upright than in your memory, but the configuration is unmistakable. At the center lies the largest stone, its surface worn smooth by centuries of hands. The interpretive sign calls it the altar stone and speculates about druidic sacrifices. You smile at the academic certainty, as if anyone truly knows what ceremonies happened here. The lowering sun casts long shadows as you step into the circle. The air feels charged, as before a storm, though the sky remains clear. From your pocket, you take the broken watch, its hands still frozen, its gears silent. Holding it in your palm, you kneel before the central stone and press your other hand against its weathered surface. Nothing happens at first. Then, gradually, a warmth spreads from the stone up your arm, familiar yet long forgotten. The watch grows hot in your palm, its cracked face beginning to glow faintly. Around you, the air shimmers as it did years before, reality itself seeming to thin and stretch. Distant sounds filter through, not modern traffic, but the clash of weapons, the shouts of warriors, the unmistakable notes of a harp. For one impossible moment, two worlds exist simultaneously. The tourist path with its safety railings overlain by moonlit grass, the interpretive signs replaced by armed men in leather and mail. A figure stands at the circle's edge, his face obscured by shadow, but his bearing achingly familiar. He raises a hand in greeting, or perhaps farewell. Then the vision fades. The watch cools in your hand, and you're kneeling once more in an ordinary stone circle as the sun dips below the horizon. But something has changed. The watch's hands now move, its mechanism ticking softly as if freshly wound. The time is wrong, of course, but that hardly matters. The message is clear. The connection remains, however tenuous. As you walk back to the car park in the gathering dusk, a young couple passes you, their arms laden with hiking gear. Creepy, aren't they? The woman remarks to her companion, nodding back at the stones. All that mystery and bloodshed. You smile but don't correct her. Some truths don't translate easily across centuries. That night in a nearby inn, you spread out your notes. The manuscript page, photographs from the dig, sketches of artifacts that match your memories. The watch ticks steadily beside your laptop, its rhythm like a heartbeat from another time. You open a new document and begin to write. Not an academic paper this time, but a truer account. One that honors both historical fact and the ineffable mysteries you've witnessed. The words flow more easily than you expected, as if they've been waiting all these years to be set free. You write of Arthur not as a mythic king, but as a pragmatic leader, of Excalibur as a well-made sword rather than a magical relic, of Camelot as a hill fort where real people fought and loved and died. But you also write of the moments that defy explanation, the standing stones that hum with power, the dreams that carry truth, the thin places where time itself seems to fold. By midnight, you've drafted the first chapter. Saving the file, you glance at the watch. Its hands have stopped again, frozen at 11:59. You smile and set it aside, knowing now that some stories aren't meant to be contained by clocks or calendars. The truth of Arthur's Britain lives where it always has, in the land itself, in the artifacts waiting to be uncovered, in the tales passed down through generations, changing yet retaining their essential heart. You switch off the lamp and lie in the dark, listening to the wind rustle the trees outside. Somewhere beyond the modern world's hum, you imagine you hear harp music and the distant clash of swords. Whether memory or imagination hardly matters anymore. The past is never truly past, and the once and future king awaits his next telling.